All right. Omar Ratef. Okay, let's go e4. Guys, this is all going on YouTube. In fact, several videos are out already. All right, we're going to go knight f3, and we have been playing the Italian, which is an opening that emphasizes classical principles. That's why I'm playing it. d6. Now, we have already faced this move, and you guys, those of you who remember, what do we do here? What have we decided to do here to control the center? What have we decided to do to control the center? Not d4 immediately. We want to prepare d4. d4 is a good move, but we want to prepare it. How do we prepare d4? How do we prepare d4? Yeah, we want to go c3. d4 is fine, but we like to occupy the center with our pawns. Now, also, it poses... Remember, in a previous game, we played the move queen b3. So when he gets his bishop out of c8, if you've seen the Morphy Opera game, you know that these pawns... Okay, so the previous guy did the same thing. We take it, ruining his structure in front of his king. Queen b3, by the way, is a fork, but it's not a good one, because black has queen c8. So let's just go d4. Let's not do anything crazy. He takes, we take. We have a beautiful center. He has a weak king. We have an advantage. He goes e5. All right. Now, according to our principle that we have formulated, and this gets a little bit complicated, do we want to close the center? Are we closing the center based on our discussion 2 games ago? Actually, we do not. Well, we can. Closing the center, I would probably play, and after the game, I will show why. But this game, let's practice keeping the center open. So let's just develop our pieces. We can close the center, which is an exception to the rule, but here we're going to keep it open just to practice playing with an open center, which you guys actually need more of. Don't worry, I will explain exactly why we could have closed the center after the game. Now we take with the queen. My guess is a lot of people go c5 in a position like this. A lot of people. Not realizing that they're weakening the square. I can guarantee you probably 50% of players like him will go c5. No, he goes knight f6. What do we do? Broken Monitor, thank you so much. What do? We castle. Nothing to invent here. We castle. We don't need to... So more again, I'll explain e5 in a moment. Thank you, Shaq, for the sub. Why not e5? So he's making a very classic mistake. He's trying to intimidate us by putting a knight on a square where it's not actually doing anything. Thank you, Kid, for the sub. What do? Do we respond? Do we react? Or do we just keep developing? We can chase the knight away with h3. But I want to show you guys that we can completely ignore him. We don't have to do anything. Just keep developing. Let's keep developing. Bishop f4. Also, this supports the pawn. So like queen h4 does no longer come with a mate threat. Let's keep that train rolling, loving it, guys. Thank you for the support. We don't react. Now, in addition to just moving the same piece twice, okay. And as soon as we do nothing, what do we do now? Do we move the bishop? Do we reactively move the bishop? Or do we apply the principle? Every time a pawn is moved, we try to understand what weaknesses have been left behind. Thank you. Thank you for the rook. Thank you for the pawn. And in addition, his knight is now undefended. His king is wide open. Boom, boom, fork. Knight undefended, wide open rook. I only have a knife. Do I even have a fork? Basic, I'm super basic. I don't even have a fork. I just have knives and spoons. But you get the point. We need to think about forks. Do we have a fork? Do we have a fork? We do. But not here, since the queen guards that square. Boom, boom, boom. When the queen, son of John 1. Another sub. Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Keep it rolling. All right. We win the piece. Okay. Ratings are refunded. Just reminding you guys. Yeah, board 3D of you. Queen g5 would have been better because it would have covered both potential forkable squares. He could have also dropped his knight onto a defended square. He's obviously still completely lost because he's down a million pieces. I should not pre-move queen takes g4 because maybe he'll go queen g6 hoping for that pre-move. He'll play king e7, and after king e7, we apply another principle. Never play a single move automatically unless it is literally the only move that is forced. Always take a moment to search for better moves, and you guys are amazing. Knight d5 check would be a fork, and a much greater fork after king e7. So his only moves are king d8 and king d7, and he maybe should block with a queen. Okay. So So he's busted. Lenzer with 500 bits. That's right. Amazing. And oh my god. And we got a sub. Sir T-Bone subscribing with Prime. Holy smokes, you guys. I'm loving this. I am loving this. He's stalling. That's okay. That's okay. In the meantime, wasting no time, Jose SRC subscribing with Twitch Prime. He's disconnected. So I think he is not very happy. Our accuracy level so far in these games has been pretty high. And he Whoa! Oh my god. G Cook 1729.5 gifted. Oh my god. Oh my god, guys. Sorry, I'm screaming, but I'm excited. Skirman just gifted 10. Holy smokes, what is going on here? We have an explosion. G Cook 1729, then Skirman 10 gifted subs. 2 Putty Chulu loves you, so wild, Qualinal, I'm Scrabby. And GM Donald Trump, I joined only because of Oh My Lands. Oh my lands, this is ridiculous. Okay, guys. The energy has arrived. I can even extend the stream. We got Wawa SC gifting. We got T-Page 8 with a sub, GSW 2017. Go Warriors with 5 more subs. And Curious Chimpanzee with 200 bits. Oh my god, I can't even talk about the game. Stop it. You guys aren't letting me talk about the game right now. Oh my lands. This is an overwhelming... Oh my goodness, we're almost at 2,000. Stefan Jacobs 123. A sub to Nick Richardson. Okay, but let's talk about the game. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate. This is amazing. Raider Rampage priming. Twitch priming. This is percolating. We're going crazy. Okay. So, of course, thank you guys. This would not be possible without this kind of support. So, the credit belongs to you guys. Thank you so much. All right. So, the move d6 we have already discussed is bad because it doesn't develop anything and it obstructs the development of the bishop. As we have talked about, the main moves here are bishop c5 and knight f6. There's also the Hungarian variation, bishop e7, which is reasonable. It's a little bit passive, but I have played this move myself. Thank you guys. You're making me blush. So d6, c3, and bishop e6. We've already had this. The last guy, please help me with a sub. Thank you for the 3 months. The last guy played d5, which is actually a very reasonable move. This guy takes the pawn, and we take back. Now we get the c3 square for the knight, and he goes e5. This is the main moment in the whole game. Let's talk a little bit about how I decided not to close the center. As a matter of fact, both moves are very, very good. It would have been a great idea to close the center. Now, bishop g4 where? Bishop g4, could somebody who was paying very careful attention to the ideas white has in this position tell me what white does here? What does white actually do here? And this is an idea that we've already seen before that I actually mentioned in this game. I already mentioned this in this game. Yeah, queen b3 is right. So queen b3 is correct because I'm very happy to hear that super duper shiny. Yeah, queen b3 is right. It's too early to take on f7, but the move queen b3 has the same idea. Now we're preparing to take on f. And if black takes on f3, I mentioned this previously, we have this checkmating mechanism that people should remember. Black does not have any way to guard both pawns at the same time. In Morphy's Opera game, which is quite possibly the most famous and the most overrated game of all time, we have seen Morphy went DE. We saw that Morphy did something very, very similar. He forks the pawn and the pawn, and that basically was how the Opera game started. It's exactly the same idea. Okay, so he goes to D5, now D5. Now, we have discussed the principle that when we have a lead in development, and when your opponent has a weak king, it is usually not a good idea to close the center because we make it harder for ourselves to access his king. We make it harder for ourselves to take advantage of our lead in development. But the reality is that here specifically, we have a maneuver that is so strong that it actually justifies us closing the center. And it is only because of this maneuver being possible that it is fine to close the center as well. So it's a very concrete moment. Could somebody spot what I'm talking about here? Bingo. Potato for president. You deserve a sub, my man. Lord Adamson, knight g5. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this knight. This outpost, and that's why you need to be very attentive to outposts, is going to be a monster. It is literally, look at this monstrosity on e6. It's not letting black castle. Either way, black literally is paralyzed. Now we're going to go bishop g5, and we're going to open up that f file and crash through and checkmate black. So actually, this is probably white's best move. Now, if you are on the receiving end of such a situation, let's flip the board. Let's say you're playing black. Damn, you allowed an outpost like this to happen by accident. Is there anything that you can do? NP Sharky, come to play with 1,000. Thank you so much, NP Sharky. What do? Is it completely lost? You can use what we discussed, undermining. You could play c6, and you can try to undermine the base of the outpost. It doesn't actually solve black's problems, because here white can kind of ignore him, and the pawn is a little bit weaker, though, so this gets a little bit complicated. But if you are on the receiving end of an outpost, see if you can undermine the piece or the pawn that is holding the outpost, that is defending it, okay, in order to try to get out of the situation. Thank you, Sufultra, for gifting to Pateo for president. Appreciate it. Okay, back to reality. We decided to keep the center open just to practice playing in these kinds of positions. Okay, so for those of you who are wondering, can black take the pawn? You actually cannot. This is a good tactical idea, but it doesn't work, because after knight takes d5, if we take, thank you Twitmax, if we take knight takes d5, then queen takes d5. If we take queen takes e6, then fork, 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 fork. This is a family fork, and we win the queen. So this is a little bit of calculation, but the knight is retained on e6. Okay. So knight c3 is the move. And so e takes d4, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. Just to remind you guys, the move c5 would have made things even worse because it would have weakened the square. And I want to use this, because we only have time maybe for one last one after this, to introduce to you the concept of weak squares. I want to talk a little bit about positional chess and make a small detour. How do we exploit the weakness of the d5 square? Do we put a knight on d5 immediately? Could somebody tell me the plan? And why is knight d5 immediately a bad idea? It's a bad idea because we want a knight on d5. We don't want to trade pieces on d5. We want the knight to be on d5 all alone. The merciful servant, beautiful. Bishop g5, take the knight, and stick this beauty on d5. You can castle first too. You might ask me, how did I know to do that? Where am I pulling this line at? Well, guess what? When I was about 7 or 8, every single Russian schoolboy is always shown a game that is a very classical game, which features precisely this plan. It is a game between Smyslov, former world champion Soviet Union, and Rudikovsky, a master. It is a game played in 1945, and it is a game precisely in which this plan was applied by Smyslov. This position occurred on the board. What do you think Smyslov did here? What do you think Smyslov did here? Can he play knight d5? No, he can't. That's terrible. But what do? Boom. 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 And that wins the game, because this knight is so strong. Black can take the pawn, but here Smyslov can deliver a fork. There's a little tactical justification. Basically, that is what Smyslov did. Everybody is shown this game. You guys might be like, Daniel, has this ever happened to you? Have I ever allowed a knight on d5? Have I ever allowed a knight to come to d5 and gotten crushed? I absolutely have. I absolutely have. And let me show you guys a good example of that. Let me show you guys a good example of that. I know the cursors go crazy here, but I will flip the game in a moment. Got a Kamsky. One of the most legendary players of all time, literally a famous effing legend. This is my game against Kamsky from the US Championship 2017. I played a Rai Lopez, and guess what happened to me? What does Gata do in this position? Bishop g5. Now he gets his knight around. He takes, and he look at, you have the components of that plan. Boom. 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 Okay, so it's happened to me and I got crushed. And this plan is one of the most classical plans in a lot of different positions. The outpost specifically on d5 is one that you have to look for. And remember the plan, of getting rid of the knight on f6 or whatever's guarding the outpost and then sticking the knight on the outpost. So I have plenty of games to show you that's not the only time that this has happened. I have games on the opposite side where I have been the one, you know, basically sticking pieces on really, really good outposts. Thank you, Lenzer, for your support. Really appreciate it. So, yeah. And I'm finishing up in 5 minutes anyway. Okay. So for that reason, this was bad for black. Let's go back to the speedrun. And just the last couple of things. Basically, after bishop f4, g5, queen takes h8. I mean, he blunders a rook, but it doesn't matter. He's already in huge trouble because he cannot get his bishop out. And queen takes g7 is coming in. And the game is over. Okay? So that is just, I mean, this is just terrible for black. And my plan here is perhaps to stick the knight on d5 or open up the center. There's a bunch of things that white can do here to end the game. And the rest is very simple. Here he loses his knight and the game is over. Guys, yes, this will be uploaded. I am already uploading. My editor has already uploaded. Big shout out to him. The first 3 parts of the speedrun, broken down into bite-sized portions. Going forward, the segments are going to be 30 to 45 minutes long because otherwise the speedrun is going to be a very, very long one. Otherwise, we're going to have 800 parts. I don't want to do that. But the first 3 segments, the first 3 games have been uploaded to YouTube. Loving the support on Twitch, but if you want to subscribe to YouTube, I try to upload as much content as possible. And I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys so very much for all the hype. Okay. I got time for one last game. One last game. And then we're going to go over it and wrap up. Okay. Ready, guys? Nope. I am just a mere mortal figuring things out just like everybody. Okay. I happen to be very passionate about this, but you guys make it possible. So let's go e4. Let's go d4. Let's go d4. And I'm going to play something a little bit different. Okay, whoa. And it's paying off already. It's paying off already. Whoa. Okay, so I have a funny move here. I have no idea what this guy's doing. I actually can not move. Yeah, I can play e4. I can play e4. Oh, my God. Jeez, relax. What can I do now? This guy's going to get what he's looking for. This guy's going to get exactly what he's looking for. How do I attack this pawn? How do I attack this? Yeah, bishop b2. I don't know what he's doing, but he's landed himself in a little bit of trouble. This guy's landed himself in a little bit of trouble. And if he takes my bishop, I take on h5, and this is checkmate in 2 moves. Yeah, now watch him start playing really well. This is like a gambit that he's analyzed, you know, for many, many years. But again... Okay, so he actually stops mate, but we can still take the pawn. We're up 2 pawns, and we're getting his king out into the open. I mean, could you possibly ask for more out of 5 moves? What do we do now? And you got to be careful, guys. Where do we move the bishop? Be careful, because remember, he wants to take on d4. And if we take back with the queen, the bishop on h5 is going to be lost. So we need to move the bishop on e3 to lend another protector for the pawn on d4. There's no reason. It wouldn't be a disaster to give that pawn up, but why should we? So we prepare to recapture on d4 with the bishop. That's basically the idea here. Okay. That is basically the idea here, and then we basically take 1d4. Yeah. Okay. Goes d6. There's several approaches here. And I'm going to make a move that looks very... Well, actually, no. Let's develop a piece that we know we want to develop. What should we develop? And be careful, please. Because the move knight f3 would be a blunder. We want to go knight c3 because now we're actually threatening knight c5. That's almost checkmate, so this is going to be fun. The move that I thought about playing, and we're actually going to play this move here. Here's the thing, guys. I want to develop this knight, but this bishop is a pain in the neck right now. Can we get this bishop somewhere safe so that we can complete our development? There's several possibilities. So we can try to trade this bishop. We can get it back. What can we do? Can you give me one move? Yeah, bishop b2. So I'm going to go bishop b2 to illustrate that sometimes it's okay to have a bishop on e2. Yes, the bishop is not super active, but we have extra 2 pawns. He has a king on e7, It's totally fine for one or more of your pieces to be on a quiet passive square, provided that you have a good reason to put it there. Okay, bishop h6. No reason not to trade. Let's take it. And let's continue our development after that with knight f3. Yeah, let's just continue our development. Now, think about which side you want to castle on. Which side do you think white should castle on? This is actually a really instructive question that is going to be important to answer well. Remember, he no longer has these two pawns, which means that if we were to castle kingside, he would be ready-made to start attacking. We would justify his strategy. We would castle long. So let's prepare it. Again, we ignore the knight. Most people would go h3 here, but I want to emphasize, and so would I, but I want to emphasize that a knight on g4 doesn't actually always do anything. But we don't want to castle long just yet, because we would drop the pawn on f2 with a fork. So before we castle long, we do want to get rid of the knight, but only because we're preparing to castle. Only because we're preparing to castle. Not because that knight is actually doing anything, so let's get rid of the knight. Are we threatening to capture the knight? Are we threatening to capture the knight here? Well, we actually were not, but we would have moved the rook away. Now we're ready to castle long. We actually aren't, but we would have moved the rook away, and then we would have been threatening to capture the knight. Yeah, we can actually take this knight. That's also possible. But remember what I tell you guys. It's less important to ruin his pawn structure. It's more important to ruin the structure around his king. Okay, let's get this out of here, even though it's not doing anything there. So bishop takes a6 doesn't actually ruin the structure around his king. I would not actually do that because it also opens up the b file and it helps him attack. What do we do in such positions? The time has come to open the center. Do we have a way to open the center, guys? We don't even need g4, g5. We have a ready-made way to open the center. Nope, guys, don't play d5. That is exactly what you want to avoid here. Just take the pawn. Just take the pawn, open the d-file. Take the pawn, open up the center, and we have already borne the fruits of it. Now, he's taken f6, c5. We ask ourselves immediately, what are the drawbacks of the move? He has weakened the square. Let's find a tactic together. What is this called, guys? And I told you guys to pay attention to this. What is this called? The rook and the queen are in what relationship? An x-ray. What do we look for when we have an x-ray? We look for a discovery. If we move this queen away, and if this pawn were gone from d6, we would be winning his queen. So what move can we make to make both of these things happen? What is the tactic? Bingo! Knight takes c5. If d takes c5, we just give a check. That's it. We won his queen. That's the importance of paying attention to these tactics. And the game is over. The game is literally over because not only does he lose his queen, he gets checkmated while he is at it. I'm not trying to pretend that it is easy to find tactics of all kinds, but when you are aware, when you are tactically aware, it becomes a lot easier to spot these hidden tactics. That is one of the drawbacks of solving puzzles. You know that there is a tactic. Trivia question. We have checkmate in 2 moves. We actually can make a move before taking the queen that leads to checkmate in 2. Find it. What is the move? You know, we can take the queen and the rook. Normally, I would propose for that to happen, but check. Let's get a piece on f7 to block the king's escape. And now this is checkmate. We could have also taken with the king. Very quickly, because I have to go in 3 minutes. Let's analyze. Okay. g5 is obviously terrible. It's also terrible after e4. I have faced the move once, and I'll talk later about it. I'll talk later about it. I'm just going to write this down. But we didn't do anything extraordinary. The move e4 is very nice because we prepare to give checkmate. Okay, so this is all very, very simple. Bishop e2. We are threatening to take on h5 with checkmate. And the key moment in the game that I want you guys to pay very careful attention to, the move bishop e2. It doesn't look like anything, but it's actually a very important move. The bishop has done its job. We drop it back to prepare the continued development. We bring all our pieces out. We don't do anything crazy. We don't go g4. We simply develop. We castle long in order to not give him an attack. Had he done something like this, we could have just moved our rook out of the way. And in addition to just move, is the rook doing anything here? Or is it just staring at the pawn? Hint, it's actually doing something on g1. What is it doing? It is not actually staring at the pawn. It might supervise a potential g4. But didn't you say, Daniel, that you shouldn't do this? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying d takes e5 is a simpler way to open the center. But if we do choose to pawn storm, we might have a rook poised to exploit the opening of the file. Okay. Instead, he does our work for us. We get the knight out, d takes e5, and here. Already at this point, as soon as we castle, I am already noticing the x-ray. And by noticing the x-ray, it becomes a lot easier to find a tactic like this because we simply apply the logical steps. To make this x-ray into a discovered check, what do we need? We need to get rid of the pawn, distract it. We need to get rid of this queen. The best way to get rid of one of our own pieces is to do so with check. We have a check, and we have a way to get rid of his pawn. He shouldn't have taken the knight, but it wouldn't have mattered. And now we find the best move. Simple, effective, unoriginal. We just do stuff that we know to do. We develop our pieces. Measured, solid, thought through chess, no drastic movements. That is how you beat offbeat openings.